In this video, I'll be showing you how to find patients, how to enter a new patient if the patient isn't already in the database, or how to change a patient. Anyway, we're going to be working with patients in this video. Everything that NowMD does is centered around patients. So we'll go to the patient center and I'll show you the simplest way to see the patients in a NowMD practice. The patient center is nothing more than a simple list of patients. You have the ability to control which pieces of information for each patient display in the patient center with the customized view feature. You can also sort the list by clicking one of the columns, and it will order that patient list that you see in the patient center by the selected column. Now, the easiest way to find a patient, to see if a patient is in the list, is to click Find Patient. Now, of course, you could scroll down through the list in the patient center and find the patient, but the easiest thing to do is search. So in my example, the patient that I want to find is Claire Everett. And you can see her right there on the screen, and it's pretty clear that that's easy to find. But when you get hundreds of patients in NowMD, you need to be able to use the Find feature. So I click Find Patient on the left-hand side menu in the Patient Center, and this Find bar displays. You can find patients by anything in the patient record, any of these fields here. But I want to find this patient by their last name. So I can type a portion of Claire Everett's last name, E-V-E-R, and press Enter. And now the patient list is filtered by the first four letters, E-V-E-R, of the patient's last name. So you can see here we have Claire Everett, and I can edit that patient by double-clicking it, and it will bring the patient entry window up. So what happens if I don't find the patient by searching in the Patient Center? I can click this New Patient button, and that will display the patient entry window so I can enter this new patient. Now let me show you another feature, another search feature in NowMD that's even better. And that is the Global Patient Search, which is in the right-hand corner, upper right corner. And you don't even have to be in the Patient Center to be able to use this Global Patient Search. So again, let's type E-V-E-R and press Enter. And this is the Patient Search window. The Patient Search window will display every patient that matches, either in their first name or their last name, the search criteria that I entered. Now you have three options. You can show only patient records, you can show only active patient records, or you can show patient encounter, payment, and patient phone records. Now the easiest thing to do, and the recommended setting in this Global Patient Search result window, is to show only the active patient records. So if a patient is inactive, the inactive patient will not show in the search record. So in this search results window, we have numerous options here on the right. We can enter different search text and search again. We can go to the patient overview. We can go to the patient list, or we can enter a new patient. Now, if the patient that you're looking for isn't found, you can enter that new patient by clicking the New Patient button here. You can go to the patient overview, which I'll be talking about also, or you can go to the patient list where we were previously. So what we want to do is select this patient by clicking it. You can, by the way, also type the number that appears next to the patient in the search results window on your keyboard, and you'll go directly there. So let's select Claire Everett, and then we'll click Go to Patient Overview. So this is the overview screen, and a lot of the training that I'm going to be doing about NowMD will start right here from the overview. Because, again, NowMD is patient-centric, so this patient overview screen shows everything about a patient in the same place. We use the same data entry window no matter if you're entering a new patient or editing an existing patient. So if we go over to the patient list view and I click New Patient, I'll get a brand new patient entry window. Or if we double-click on one of the patients that are listed here in the patient list, I will see the patient entry window for that patient, or I can change to the patient overview and click the patient's name, and the same patient entry window will display. I'll be discussing each of the tabs that you see here in the patient entry window, and the first tab right here at the top is Name and Address. First of all, the code field. When you're entering a new patient, if you leave the code field blank, NowMD will automatically assign a patient code. The code doesn't really matter for anything. It is comprised of part of the patient's last name and part of the patient's first name. And that doesn't matter because even if a patient's name changes, The recommended way to find a patient in NowMD is by searching for their name. So their name changes, but their code doesn't change. You can still find the patient easily. To the right of the code field is a checkbox. This person is a patient. And normally that will be checked for certain kinds of practices like pediatrics. If we're entering a guarantor rather than a patient, the guarantor has to be entered and the patient has to be entered separately in the patient entry window. So for the guarantor, you'd uncheck this box. For the patient, it would be checked. This information is pretty self-explanatory. First name, middle name, last name, head of household. In an entry window, any kind of entry window in NowMD, if you see this magnifying glass, you can click it to search for existing data in the NowMD files, and you can also add a new of whatever this thing is where the magnifying glass appears, or select or edit. So if we just want to select it, that's fine. You can also, when you have a field here, like we have for the head of household with a magnifying glass next to it, we can search for another patient or search for whatever this data element is in NowMD and fill it in for you. So I want to find Alexander Everett because Alexander is the head of household. So a head of household is someone that the statements are sent to, and the head of household could also be the insured. Usually they're the same. So I can type EVER and press the tab key, and this search will find every patient record in NowMD that matches the search criteria that I typed. So Alexander Everett is the guarantor, so we'll click Alexander and it fills in the code field and the name of the head of household. A shortcut that you have when you're setting up a dependent or a member of a household is that once you've selected the head of household, you can click this button to copy the address from the head of household. The fields clear down to this telephone area are self-explanatory. You can have as many telephone numbers for a patient or a guarantor as you need to. That includes home, cell phone, work number, mom's house, whatever. So you can enter as many telephone numbers for this patient as you need to store. Next, let's go to the Personal and Account tab. Going down the list of fields here. By the way, the best way to move from field to field is with the tab key. Notice that right now the sex field is highlighted. You can fill that in, then press tab. You can move field to field. The category field is a field of your choosing that's defined by a healthcare practice or a billing service. This is to categorize patients by anything you can dream up. You can click the search magnifying glass here. Notice we have no category set up. This is completely user defined and for categorizing patients just how you need to. The new patient source tells us where this patient came from. Now, the new patient source could be an ad or a coupon. It could be a Yellow Pages ad. It could be another patient referral. But this is marketing information that's used to analyze the patient's revenue from different patient sources. The account status, you can select active or inactive or hold or no service or collection. Remember, in the global patient search window, we have the ability to only show active patients. So if you change this patient's status to inactive, then this patient would not show in the global patient search. The other patient ID field is used if you have some other way of identifying a patient. For example, on paper charts in an office, if you have a chart number, you can put that other patient ID here. The next field, provider, this is the default rendering provider. So when a new encounter is entered for this patient, that provider will be assigned. The next field, patient statement note. This note will appear on statements that are sent to the head of household. The alert message is used for this. See where it says get copy of new insurance card? The alert message, the patient alert message, displays in the patient overview, and it's for important information that you need to know. For example, get a new copy of an insurance card, patient's balance is past due, discuss payment arrangements with patient, etc. And the remainder of fields on the Personal Account tab are self-explanatory, so let's skip over to Insurance Policies. The first thing on the Insurance Policies tab I want to show you is this shortcut button here that lets us copy all policy information from the head of household. So if this is a dependent, their insurance is going to be the same as the head of household, so clicking this we'll copy it all from the head of household. So pretty much all these fields are self-explanatory. Again, the insurance carrier, this is a search window. You can either type a portion of the insurance carrier name and press tab to display search, or you can click the magnifying glass. Let's go over here to copay amount. NowMD can automatically enter a copay due when you're entering a patient encounter. So if a procedure is set up to require a copay, and the copay amount is entered here, when a procedure code is used in an encounter, the copay due will automatically be entered for that service line based on the copay amount field. So we have up to 3 insurance carriers that we can store here on the Insurance Policies tab. So next, let's go to the Employment and Custom tab. In the fields at the top of this tab, this is where you enter the employment status and who the employer is. So NowMD can store information on employers and a retirement date if the patient is retired. In the custom information area of this tab, we can see 5 fields. Now, NowMD will store custom information for patients, for providers, for insurance carriers, etc. And you can set up the names of these 5 custom fields in the Settings and More tab. Let's go to the Default Diagnosis tab. NowMD supports up to 12 diagnoses for a patient, and in practices where the diagnosis rarely changes, chiropractic and physical therapy, mental health practices, those kinds of practices, you can set up a default diagnosis for the patient, up to 12 of them, and those diagnoses will automatically be entered when a new encounter is created for this patient. Let's go over to the Notes tab. The Notes tab you'll find in a lot of places in NowMD, but it allows you to keep detailed notes about a patient in this case. So you can see at the top of the window, let me remove this, we have these shortcuts that can put in a date and a time and the user code of the person, the initials of the person who entered it. So we can type a note as detailed as you want to get to note anything about the patient account, and then you can save it, and that will save that note to the patient record. So you've seen that we can access patient information from the patient center. So in the patient center, I can click Patient List. This is a list of all the patients. You can find a patient by any of the data elements that are on this list in the patient center. And the best way to find a patient is by using the Global Patient Search that you can access wherever you are in NowMD. So then if I find the patient and I click the patient, or I click Patient Overview, then we can go to the Overview, which is the best place to access a patient.